War brings out the worst in people. Well, when we talk about World War II, it brought absolute monsters to the fore. Millions were killed and entire cities were wiped out. But while most of these incidents had a goal, there were still tales of senseless violence that are enough to give even the bravest of us nightmares. Hello and welcome to our channel. Today, we're going to talk about the Telavåg tragedy and the details of the incident. So, let us begin. Telavåg was a small but prosperous fishing community on an island approximately an hour's drive from Bergen in the 1940s, albeit back then, the only means of transportation to the island was by boat. The 63-year-old fisherman Laurits Telle and his eldest son Lars, both from Telavåg, began secretly organizing boat voyages from Telavåg to Shetland in May 1940, barely 1 month after the invasion of Norway. At the Telle farmhouse, persons seeking refuge from the Gestapo for their involvement in illicit activities, or those who wished to aid the British Army, waited in secrecy until a boat was prepared to take them to safety. The British Armed Forces responded by sending boats full of firearms, ammunition, radios, and other supplies to Norway to support the developing resistance movement there. The aforementioned Lars sheltered in caves and shacks along the coast's rocky outcrops. The Germans restricted the passage of any vessel other than fishing boats off the coast of Norway. Thus, the only way to get to and from Shetland was on fishing boats, which were slow and took roughly 30 hours even in excellent weather. The boats were discreetly equipped with anti-aircraft machine guns by naval officers in Shetland. For 2 years, Lauritz and Lars rode a wave of good fortune thanks to the fact that Lauritz was an experienced sailor who was familiar with the North Sea's shipping lanes. Far from any German forts, the fishing village of Telavåg was secluded enough for its residents to own unlicensed radios without raising suspicion. In the dead of night, the boats could set sail from Telavåg, and by morning they would be too far out to sea for the German planes to locate them. A total of at least 136 persons used Telavåg as a means of escaping to Shetland between May 1940 and January 1942, although some reports have listed as many as 500. During the war, human and weapon trafficking occurred all along the western coast of Norway, earning the moniker the Shetland Bus. This was not limited to the town of Telavåg. The Gestapo in Bergen, Norway was informed about Lauritz and Lars in the spring of 1942. It's hard to fathom who, in such a close-knit community, would do anything like that. It could have been the town sheriff Per Lee. His store, run by his wife Rebecca, was widely known to stock more supplies than any other in town after the German invasion of Norway, and rumors spread that she had cheered on the invaders. Soon after the war ended, Per released a slim volume titled The Truth About What Happened at Telavåg in an effort to exonerate himself. Lars, he said, was just too naive and let too many people in on the operations, which was a major problem. In addition, he hypothesized that Lars was the cause of the local man's anger because Lars had sold him a damaged boat. The man also complained that he was going to out the family's secret about the illegal radio they were hiding. On April 23rd, a Gestapo agent posing as a Bible salesman was dispatched to Telavåg. They dispatched a spy to Shetland a day later, posing as someone who wanted to go on a fishing expedition, code for boarding a boat. Despite Lauritz's efforts to put the man at ease, his wife discovered that they had been given a bogus name and address and were therefore potentially in danger. The following day, on April 26th, 4 German soldiers snuck up on the Telle farmhouse in the dead of night, anticipating an ambush on any potential escapees hiding out in Lauritz's loft. They didn't realize that Lauritz was sheltering 2 British Special Operations executive operatives that night, both of whom were armed. Codename Anchor and Penguin, Emil Gustav Huval and Arne Verum were instructed to wait in Telavåg for further orders before beginning operations elsewhere in Norway. Age, Lauritz's son, who was 13 years old, was also napping there. When the Germans entered the loft, they yelled for everyone to get out of bed, and one of them smacked Verum in the head with the butt of his gun. Verum, who had slept with 4 weapons strapped to his chest, opened fire on the Gestapo and killed one of them. Hval opened fire, but he took 9 bullets himself. Hval was able to stay alive and eliminate another German commander. Age stopped moving and raised his arms in the air. 2 more German officers sped off to call their headquarters in Bergen. Josef Terboven, the Nazi High Commissioner in Norway, made the trip to Telavåg to make the final decision and oversee the execution of the penalty. Lauritz, his wife Martha, and their son Age were all transported to the Gestapo headquarters in Bergen, where they were questioned and tortured. Lars and 18 other men from Telavåg who were suspected of involvement in the illegal boat activity were sent to a detention camp outside of Oslo. The Sachsenhausen concentration camp was established outside of Berlin to house all male Telavåg residents aged 16 to 60. The camp claimed the lives of 31 of these men. The female prisoners and their children were brought to a prison camp a few hours outside of Bergen. Even though he was only 8 years old at the time of the punishment, one guy vividly recalls seeing the men of the hamlet make their way to the boats that would take them to the camps. One of them was his dad. His mother had gotten their ration card and hurried out the door, urging her son to hurry and give it to his father. Although he gave it his all, 2 German troops aimed their weapons at him. To him, this was just another day with his dad. Nobody knew what was going on, and some of them felt they were just being questioned. Moreover, Commissioner Terboven mandated that Telavåg be obliterated from all records and that its name be scrubbed from all maps. Everything in Telavåg was destroyed, down to the wells. In many ways, the Telavåg tragedy affected more than simply the Norwegians. It was a catastrophe that illustrated the brutality and inhumanity of war and that affected people all throughout the globe. The destruction of Telavåg by bombing was a stark reminder of the devastation and loss of life that war can bring. It served as a sobering reminder of the fact that no one is ever truly safe from the devastation that war always brings. The Telavåg tragedy served as a reminder that the pain and suffering caused by conflict cannot be overlooked. Many individuals across the world and in Norway came together to support those affected by the Telavåg tragedy. Help in the form of food, housing, and medical attention was provided to the residents of Telavåg by the Norwegian government and the people of Norway. Aid and support for victims and their families were also provided by the Norwegian Red Cross. The events in Telavåg are well known across Norway, and in the 1940s, the story spread beyond Europe. Telavåg was one of the few Western European cities the Germans completely obliterated as a form of punishment. Heinrich Christen, the German in charge of Bergen's civilian operations, lamented the deaths of 2 of his soldiers in Telavåg in his diary. In reference to Telavåg, he stated, "A hard destiny, but it was necessary to deter the coast people from repeating such idiocy." Before Emil Hval was carried away to the prison camp where he would be executed, his wife was allowed to visit him in the hospital. The last things she said to him were, "Vær norsk," which means, "Be Norwegian." Stories from World War II are often told with the intention of highlighting the bravery and glory of the armed forces, but this one does not finish on a triumphant note. As a result of the confiscation of all the contraband munitions, no major resistance action outside of Telavåg was able to proceed. For a further 2 years, the Germans kept Norway under occupation. The Norwegian resistance movement's commitment was strengthened by the Telavåg tragedy. In the face of such adversity, the resistance fighters just became more determined to resist the Nazi occupation. The Telavåg tragedy was a critical juncture in the conflict and contributed significantly to Norway's eventual freedom. Now, one question remains. What happened to Lars? In an autobiographical book, he describes his daring escape from Norway on the fishing boat Motig 1 in February of 1941. Subsequently, he became a member of the Norwegian Naval Independent Unit, or the Shetland Bus as its more common name suggests. Despite its designation, the SOE unit in the Royal Norwegian Navy operated independently from the regular Navy at first. He got his education from the Linge Company. It was in the fall of 1942 that he led an attempt to sink the German battleship Tirpitz in the Trondheimsfjord as the captain of the fishing trawler Arthur in Operation Tidal. Despite the mission's failure, Larsen became the only non-British person ever to be awarded the Conspicuous Gallantry Medal. The feat of advancing to within 10 miles of the berth occupied by the Tirpitz constitutes, on the side of personnel and particularly that of the Norwegians, a remarkable example of cold-blooded courage, writes the Admiralty of the operation. Larsen was given a formal commission as a sub-lieutenant, Fenrik, in the Royal Norwegian Navy, which is why he had such an odd collection of British honors while having started out with the nominal rank of petty officer, quartermaster. As the war wore on and the Germans strengthened their air and naval defenses, operations got riskier. 3 American sub-chasers, which were larger, quicker, and better armed than the fishing boats, were eventually deployed in place of the fishing boats once they realized the true purpose of fishing boats operating from the coast. Larsen, a commissioned officer, assumed command of the HNO-MS Vigra, one of the 3 warships thus designated. He visited Norway a total of 52 times. No other individual, British or otherwise, won the same British military awards as he did, making him the most highly decorated naval officer of World War II with 11 honors. He received Norway's highest military honor, the Krigskorset med Sverd, War Cross with Sword, in addition to the extraordinary collection of British honors he already possessed. Only 11 other people were honored with the War Cross with 2 swords, and he was one of them. In 1995, a statue of him was installed in the Bryggen UNESCO World Heritage Site in the city center of Bergen along the water. Larsen was honored as Vestlandets Man of the Century by the Bergen newspaper Bergens Tidende in the year 2000. His awards can be seen in the North Sea Traffic Museum in Telavåg. So that is all the time we had today, folks. Hope you enjoyed this video. Do not forget to subscribe to our channel and do hit the bell icon to remain updated about all our future videos. See you all next time.